Today on Upfront, my extended interview with Wisconsin Congressman Paul Ryan. Ryan on his new book, The Ever-Present 2016 Speculation, and what should be done about ISIS, the new terror threat in the Middle East. Then the state is taking in less money than predicted. Today, what this says about Wisconsin's economy and the state budget.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. We begin today with an extended interview with Wisconsin Congressman Paul Ryan. His new book, The Way Forward, came out last month and has now reached #2 on the New York Times nonfiction bestsellers list. Ryan has been having a lot to say lately about world affairs and the disturbing new terror threat in the Middle East. And so we're talking with Republican from Janesville, Congressman Paul Ryan. Congressman, good to have you back on the program.
Great to be back with you, Mike.
Well, let's talk about the threat posed by ISIS. You have talked about this in the last week. You've said that we need to conduct a campaign to deal with this threat, that the threat must be dealt with comprehensively and thoroughly. But what do we do?
Well, I don't want to play armchair general, but what we do know that ISIS bases their operations out of Syria. They've taken over large parts of Iraq. We know where they are. There are thousands of foreign jihadists with foreign passports. So we need to have what I say a comprehensive strategy to finish them off, not to just contain ISIS or react to developments, but to put together a campaign to finish off this terrorist threat, because this is a group that's more sophisticated, more advanced, and potentially more lethal than even al-Qaeda. And so we have to see this threat for what it is. I think part of its rise stemmed from foreign policy mistakes in Iraq and Syria. Let's revisit those mistakes and fix this. And the president needs to have a strategy, and he shouldn't announce to the world that he doesn't have one.
Does a campaign include American military action beyond air attacks?
Well, like I said, I don't want to be an armchair general. I don't think this looks anything like the prior Iraq war. I think there are clearly probably going to be special operations, but mostly it's working with the Peshmerga, Sunni Iraqis, Syrian Free Army. Those are the boots on the ground that you think of when you think of boots on the ground.
But not American boots on the ground.
No, but maybe we have advisors. Maybe we have people that are helping their forces assemble. And clearly air is the biggest part of the role that we would play.
You mentioned the president's decisions, and in your book, The Way Forward, and we'll talk more about that in a moment, you said that, you know, despite your concern about some of the fiscal issues facing this nation, what keeps you up at night is the foreign policy decisions that have been made in the last 6 years. How so?
So I think if we get our government right and we put the right policies in place, our domestic problems are solvable. And I spell out in this book how we should solve them, because I think we need to offer ideas. So that means within our own control, we can fix our domestic problems, our debt, our deficit, our economy, energy policy. It's the foreign policy issues that are not totally within our control, that are on a very dangerous trajectory that I worry could take a long time to fix. Weakening our national defense, having America lose its standing in the world makes us less prosperous and less safe ultimately. And that's what will take much longer to fix, because that's not all within our control, because there are other countries that have a say-so in this. Iran, Russia, you know, you name it. And that to me is what's even more dangerous, because that's something that we can't fix within ourselves.
It is, though, very difficult for any American leader at this moment in time, given the war weariness of this nation. How do you address some of these problems, knowing that the American public is tired of American troops overseas?
This is what requires leadership. It is easy to lead when you're saying something popular that people want to hear. It is hard to lead when you're saying things that people may not want to hear, but leaders nevertheless, if they see a threat to their country, need to do something about it. And that's what concerns me about the president's lack of leadership on this issue. Look, these jihadists, this kind of terrorist group, they're not war-weary. They're coming. We need to address this threat for what it is. And I would argue it is a containable threat right now. We know where they are. We know exactly what we need to do to go get them. We need to do that, even if people are war-weary. The question is the price to be paid later if we don't comprehensively address it right now.
You're very critical of President Obama in this book. I guess I'm wondering about something you said in here. It struck me as interesting. You talked about the 1998 election, okay? So you're elected to Congress. But it was not a good midterm election for Republicans.
Right.
And your observation was that part of the problem was that it became a referendum on Bill Clinton. Are you worried, when you look at the dynamics of this year's midterm elections, that that's what Republicans are doing again, that this is a referendum on Barack Obama?
Yeah, that's why I wrote this book, because we can't just define ourselves as what we were against. We can't just run on criticizing the other party or the other person. We need to offer a comprehensive alternative. And so my whole argument in this book is, yes, let's be critical of the things we don't agree with, of the track we are on, but we, at the same time, have to offer people an alternative, a different way forward. How do you apply our founding principles to today's problems to give people real solutions that are realistic and show how we can turn things around? So we have to be a proposition party. We have to be an alternative party. That's why I lay out a very comprehensive alternative for how we get our country back on track, how you reignite the American idea so that everybody gets an opportunity to make their lives better, to reach their potential in this country. That's what we've done in this country. We're not on the right path. And I would argue that there are better ways of doing it, and that's why I wrote this book.
And you believe the Republican message, at its core, is a message that will resonate with all kinds of voters, not just the typical Republican constituencies.
That's right. So what I'm trying to do here is to try and build a bigger movement, not unlike what Ronald Reagan did in 1980, to do my part to show a conservative movement that is principled, inclusive, aspirational, and therefore appealing to a majority of Americans, so that we can win the kinds of elections we're going to have to win to get the moral authority and the mandate to fix this country's problems on our own terms as a nation before it gets too late, so we can reignite the American idea. And so, yes, what I'm trying to do here is build a majoritarian movement to fix America's problems, because I think most Americans believe and know that we're on the wrong track.
How do you become more inclusive? And I asked this of Reince Priebus probably a year ago. When you have African-American voters who feel that the Republican Party sometimes doesn't want them to participate in the process because of the photo ID issue, or you have people in this country of Latino heritage who feel that some of the rhetoric on immigration has been very hurtful. How do you bring them into the party when they may have these feelings about what the Republican Party stands for?
So I talk about that here quite a bit as well. And so, first of all, you have to show up, you have to learn, you have to listen. My mom always told me you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use it in that proportion. Second of all, we have to show why our solutions and our ideas make a better difference in their lives and how they're realistic and how we want them inside our big tent to participate, to make everybody's life better. I think immigration is very important for America. It really is America. We just want it to be a legal system. We want it to be one where that is enforced with the rule of law. But we need to show people that we have solutions. And so my argument is, whether it's better ideas for fighting poverty, whether it's fixing our immigration system, it's that we want a participatory system where we have better ideas that speak to each and every person no matter where they are in life, and that we have real solutions that can help them improve their lives. And I would argue that freedom and free enterprise, founding principles, self-government under the rule of law, these great things that made us this great society is there for everybody, and we need to take this message everywhere and show people that we have better ideas. And so part of it is just showing up. The second part of it is being good listeners and then showing that we have better ideas.
So you're saying that the Republicans up until this point have not done enough.
We haven't done enough.
Showing
up part.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's continue. We'll take a break. We'll talk to Paul Ryan about some of the other things in this book. We'll talk about his plans for 2016. We have to do that. That's a prerequisite for an interview with Congressman Ryan. We'll continue on Up Front in just a moment.
Up Front with Mike Gousha, brought to you by American Transmission Company.